Okay, thank you very much for joining. My name is Machula, and in today's session, it's 90 minutes, and what we're going to do is for the full hour here, roughly 50 minutes, we're going to discuss the angels of white light, how to work with them, how you can incorporate them into your spiritual training or into your QHHT training. And then I'm going to also explain to you kind of how I, with the blessing of spirit and my clients, added to the teachings that have happened. So let me give you kind of a little bit of a background about myself. My story starts off in 2018. My dad passes away. I approach my priest. I say, "Who's coming to me in dreams?" When you have a loved one coming to you in dreams, it's not a dream, it's called a visitation. And they're actually communicating to you. And it's proven in science because basically what's happening is your mind is in a theta state and you're open to these messages. And my dad came in with messages of love. So I approached my local priest. I said, "Who's coming to me in these messages?" He says, "It's the devil. The devil has many forms." And I knew my dad's love. And I realized that that's untrue. And I went on this journey of going to over 40 different churches, studying religion. Finally, I reached out to an evidentiary medium. She immediately was able to connect to my dad, gave a message that I knew it was distinctly my dad. And then afterwards, in working with her, she mentioned to me about QHHT and that her guides are telling me that I should learn QHHT. And at that time, I never knew what it was. And it was the first time I got a message from Spirit to do something. And immediately I put the course on my credit card. I didn't even know what I was doing. But because I firmly believed in spirit, I did it, got, passed the class. And then I was working with her for she would like pass along clients that are interested in the spiritual world. And I kind of advertised and I started getting and doing my sessions. And for the first 15 sessions, I think I did them for free. The next 10 sessions were $100. And then I started charging. So I don't know how many now sessions I've done. It's in the probably a couple hundred. I also teach past life regression, but the interesting thing happened is that I wanted to learn more. So I started taking other hypnotherapy courses and I took transpersonal hypnotherapy and dealing with dementia. And then I took a course in Manitoba to get my CHT. And in the course that we kind of really focused in on no spiritual topics, no past life regression. But there was a colleague of mine who she completed a QHHT, an internship, and she was interested in this area. She loved Dolores Cannon. She liked Michael Newton, and we got to talking. And then I came across, I was looking for ways to connect and how do I connect with the spiritual realm? And I came across a gentleman by the name of Howard Beatty. And here I'll share with you a book. It's called Art of Metaphysical Communication. He's a hypnotherapist located in Washington State. And, and he wrote this book of how to connect to source. What is the process? And he explains it in a process of meditation and gives kind of a roadmap to connect. So subsequently, he also has a book called Spiritual Journeys. And I reached out to her and I said, "How would you like to do these spiritual journeys with yourself?" And she goes, "Yes, let's do it." And so we started learning self-hypnosis and how to access the spiritual realm and then accessing different places. And one of the places was the Temple of Healing. And in accessing the Temple of Healing, instead of going kind of like right, I went left. I ended up in this place I didn't know about at all. And it's the most amazing thing is that it had 12 rooms. The Temple of Healing has 3 rooms. It has a healing room, there's the Akashic records, and there's the Violet Flame or a meditation room, kind of like that. And that's it. But this place had 12 rooms. Now, I've never channeled before. I didn't know if I could channel, and I realized I needed to reach out to people who work in this area to help me discover and explain what I found. So I found a lady out in Calgary. I'm in Winnipeg, and I paid for her airfare to come to visit with me. and for 2 weeks, we basically went up to the spiritual realm to discover this place. And I also worked with another colleague. So there were actually four of us. And we were able to co-create this place in the spiritual realm called the Temple of Divinity. And we had the honor to name it. And that's why I call myself kind of like the founder. I found it, kind of tripped over myself, fell into it, and then co-create it. And what's its purpose? Its purpose is to heal your heart. And so far, what we found is we found over 70 different rooms. So basically what happens is I'm able to take someone on a spiritual journey of healing their heart, and you go basically from room to room to room in terms of healing. And it's amazing how people evolve. So this gives me kind of a little bit of how would you say, the credibility to explain to you what I do. And I am very kind of like deeply rooted in using spiritual techniques for healing. So basically, my whole practice is based on what I call spiritual regression. I regress people into an experience where the divine guides them towards healing. And this is where working with the angels of white light comes through. And another book that Howard Beatty wrote. So if you want to study his exact technique, it's called Transscalar Healing. Okay, it's by Howard Beatty. And in this book, what he explains is a way to connect to the divine through the scalar energies. So if you read the book, what you'll find is a way that you can connect to the divine by expanding your scalar energies. And in the book, what he does is he then explains how to do a healing with the angels of white light. And I think this is a great time for me to just jump into my presentation. So hold on a second, share screen. Let's see if I can, there we go. Okay. How's this? Can you guys see that? Or can I make it a little bigger? Let me see. Okay.
We can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
Yes.
So there we go. As soon as Zoom comes up, suddenly my computer is starting to slow down. 1 second here. Now we're going to get into a slideshow. So what happened is that in working with the angels of white light over the last 4 years, not only did they have 4 nets, but we were able to discover over 12 nets or meshes that they have, and I'm happy to share them today with the group. And what I'd like to stress to you that this is like if you've studied kind of parts healing and things like that, and then in hypnotherapy, they have different techniques of, you know, for example, my mind's just blank, but in terms of just breaking down and addressing parts healing or doing regression in the current lifetime, what you'll find is that when you work with the angels of white light, the healing that they do is so, how'd you say, it's so done with so much love, caring, and expansiveness that it's absolutely amazing to experience, to participate, and to get that response from your clients. Okay, so basically, here, let me just share. Originally, what happened is Greg McHugh wrote a book called, he's another hypnotherapist, wrote a book called The New Regression Therapy. And this is a very kind of, it's a, I would just say it's an intermediate to advanced kind of practice. And he wrote this book, and in the book, he shares how once his hypnotherapy practice kind of converted to working with the divine for healing, it just changed totally. So now in my practice, for example, I'm doing addiction like therapy with respect to just taking people up to with the divine and assisting clients to come to sobriety by connecting to their spiritual selves, to their higher selves. Also, I've changed my weight loss journey, the same thing of teaching people how to connect to themselves and going through this healing journey through kind of direction with the divine. So there's so many different applications. And subsequently, when I worked with some of my other students, we were able to expand on the angels of white light and their particular nets. So my experience and what I wanted to share with you is that you guys can implement this in your QHHT sessions or in your BQH sessions. So the way to implement this working with the angels of white light is you have to, for example, take your client, say you would do it the first half, you do your past life regression. The second half, when you're reaching out and talking to the subconscious, you can then ask the subconscious, for example, can my client go to the Temple of Divinity or the Temple of Healing for healing? And usually they'd say yes. Subsequently, you go to these two locations. You can choose either one. And then that is where the healing would happen. You would call in the angels of white light. The angels of white light always show up. I've never had a situation where they never did show up. And while you're kind of going through the healing process, there's an actual, how would you say, a script that you can follow. Typically, I utilize this book to kind of guide people through it. And you start off with doing an invocation, and then you start off with the nets. And while you're doing the healing, it's also like each net is very, very particular. So, for example, the first net is removing, attachments and negative entities. Now, QHHT never discusses entities. And unfortunately, like, for example, I think that one of the reasons why it doesn't discuss entities or goes into a deep dive in terms of entity work is because you need additional skills. It takes time to train, and it takes time to work and understand how to work with specific negative entities. And the first net, typically what happens is that it could be all sorts of different types of negative entities. And then there's also a purpose of why they're with that particular client. So, for example, they could be around a body part, like in the mind, it could be in the heart. And then while you're working with that negative entity, it could actually be where you ask the entity to, what is its purpose with the client? What is it doing there? How is it affecting the client? And then the other interesting part is where an area where I expanded on is not only in addressing the negative entity, but also asking if the negative entity has any supervisors, how many other people it's affecting, and then helping him to release the energies that negative entity has and sending it to the light. So the whole process that when we work with the angels of white light is to identify, for example, negative entities, share with the negative entities that they were made of the light, and then subsequently direct them to the light so that they're no longer in the energetic field of our clients. The interesting thing about working with the angels of white light is that the first few nets are all kind of like nets that grab things, and they tend to be mostly negative things. And then afterwards, it turns to kind of a spiritual school, a meshes of growth. So the next one specifically is the second one net is invited entities. And a lot of times, for example, clients may invite a loved one. For example, in today's session that I did, a client identified it was a gentleman who had a love interest with her, and she was amazed that she kept that entity with her and that energy there. Um, Also, like for example, you can invite family, friends, their negative feelings, emotions that you actually bring to them and to your energy field, right? At that time, you can determine, for example, if they should remain or be released. Now, I'd like to share with you that when I'm teaching a course in spiritual regression, I have the students kind of like work on this almost on their own. So you can actually go up to the spiritual realm, and just the way Howard Beatty shares, do it on your own, where you invoke the angels of white light to come in. You can write down who you're releasing, what you're replacing, and so forth. Make a comment of that, and then go back to your client and ask them, how do you feel? Do you have any kind of um, experiences around that, and does this make sense? And it's absolutely amazing when you do that with people that you don't know. I remember when I was first doing this, I actually picked somebody out of Facebook, didn't know them, just got a name. I asked them if they wanted the healing, did the healing, and then asked them to correlate if any of this makes sense. And it absolutely blew me away how exact it was. The only mistake I remember on this particular client was that they were talking about their mother, and the client corrected me, it was a stepmother. So that was just like the only mistake that was made when you experience it. The other thing I would like to stress is that when you're doing this on your own, and when you're working with the angels of white light on your own, for example, and you take yourself up to the spiritual realm, and then you go through the healing, you make notes. This is an unbelievable way to work on your spiritual connection, on your psychic abilities, to be able to really verify your intuition. Is your intuition right on point? Because then afterwards, you're confirming with the client and saying, well, I felt that you had in your chest, you had whatever emotion it was. And then the client's going, how did you know that? I felt, a release. And it's a way just to blow your mind in a way. The spiritual realm just keep on always coming up with more information and interest and healing. Now, devices, monitors, and implants. For example, I never personally believed there are devices, monitors, and implants. Didn't make any sense with me. I kind of looked at a lot of things, although I grew up religious, also with a little bit of a scientific bent, until I had this one client come in, and working with another intuitive person, I was able to see the monitors, implants that this particular client had on them. And that just takes you to another level to understand that there are monitors, implants on clients. They are affecting them a certain way. And the interesting thing is that you can find out who placed them, what purpose was for them, and how they've been affecting the clients. After these monitors, devices, implants are released, the client's going to feel a tremendous release of energy. Ruminating thoughts that they may have had are released, and they come to kind of a sense of peace. The fourth net is thoughts and beliefs. And this is something also that the angels are able to identify, find, release, and make peace with. And again, this tends to be like people doing that self-talk, or for example, talk that was given by someone else, family member, whatever, that they permitted to take their kind of the way they've been called and make it their own negative self-talk. And once again, once it's released, the client has a tremendous release and tremendous peace from that. Now, this is where kind of the book stops, but my work continued with the Angels of White Light. And roughly 4 years ago, one of the things I wanted to really focus on is releasing trauma and understanding how to release trauma. And I believe that trauma is kind of like it's that kernel, the seed that causes so much additional suffering, be it alcohol addiction, narcotic addiction, obesity, whatever. Nobody decides to wake up one day and turn into a 600-pound life. It's something that is inherent in their makeup, could be childhood trauma or something like that. Or I had a client, for example, it was a past life trauma that's he was referred to me by a psychological doctor. He referred me, and we ended up having to go to past life to release this trauma. So the fifth net specifically is in releasing trauma. And the interesting part about it is that all time is here and now. So we can release past trauma, we can release trauma in this current lifetime, and we can even go into potential future lifetimes and release future lifetime trauma. Don't explain to me how that happens. All I can say is what you're channeling to me in order to explain to yourself what you need to do to share with the clients. Now, the first time I experienced this, what happened with me is that I could feel the trauma that I suffered through past lives. So all the times I've had multiple past lives, and all the times that I was killed, I was getting images of all different ways that I was killed. It wasn't a fun experience for myself in terms of addressing the past life trauma. Not every client has those visions. What they typically have is just this feeling, amazing feeling of release, of blessing that this trauma was removed. And typically it's done with a lot of love, and the clients don't have any particular flashbacks or anything like that that may concur of what experience they may had. And after we do the fifth net, we discovered a sixth net. And this is, I would say, kind of like spiritual growth or development. And this is what we discovered, is that blessing and gratitude. And honestly, I always believed they were kind of just like platitudes. Well, it's nice to be blessed and it's nice to have gratitude for your health and so forth. But what I realized is that blessing and gratitude is a frequency. And when you vibe into this frequency, your life changes. And what they've shared with me is that we need to get the clients, for example, to at least the sixth net before you complete your healing journey. After we, for example, get to that net, what they ask is that the Angels of White Light go to all the universes and dimensions to collect the fragments, your soul fragments. Typically, your soul energy is not all in one space because of past traumas and so forth. And they go and collect those soul fragments. They're able to integrate them, and then you can decree that client has received the spiritual healing with the Angels of White Light. And then lastly, what we ask them to do, or when you're working with them, is you have to thank them for helping, thank them for arriving, thank them for the work. And typically you have 3 or more of Angels of White Light actually show up. Today, in today's session, she counted 5. So people can see them sometimes extremely visually, other times they just experience them. So the work, when I was doing with my clients, the work continued. And we found another net or mesh, and this is connection. And if you guys would like to receive kind of a greater explanation of all the different meshes and nets, please email me. I think I'll put up my email so you guys can reach out. I'm at tmachula.com, just the letter T, machula.com. You can find more information about myself. But the seventh mesh was connection. And what you'll find is this is kind of like a spiritual growth for a client of connecting, and then the next one was expansion, creation, evolution, and then I had one client that helped me discover the 11th and the 12th mesh. And the amazing thing about all these meshes is that when you guide your client, they're exactly, it's the same mesh, but a different kind of experience around connection. And this is an unbelievable way to kind of guide your client, grow your client spiritually, and have them expand their spiritual skills and abilities. The other benefit I'd like to share with you with respect to as a QHHT or BQH experience is that when you work with the angels of white light, there's few sessions that you complete all the meshes in one session. A lot of times, you have to come back. A lot of times you can't even get through. I had situations where with some clients, we weren't even able to get through the first and second one in a session. And it ended up being 3 sessions of dealing with trying to get through, the negative entities and so forth. And it's an amazing ability for you to kind of expand your skills, expand your program and what you have, and be able to offer more healing services for your clients. And one thing I'd like to share with you is that I'm happy to provide and to teach kind of if you guys are interested in learning more about this and actually having an experience of practicing this and doing it in a group setting so that you're more comfortable in implementing it into your QHHT or BQH practice. I'm more than happy to do up kind of a session for clients. I was thinking of something like a 6-hour session broken into two parts where we can learn how to work with them, and then we would work with each other. So we would have a client that would experience this, you would have practice of working with them, and then subsequently I would guide you as a whole group to the Temple of Divinity, and then subsequently working with the angels of white light. So any questions just that I may have missed? I noticed here, I'll stop the sharing for a second and try to answer any questions you might have before I continue on. Oh, we got some people in the waiting room. Go ahead, Summer.
Yeah, so in some of my sessions, talking with the subconscious, it will like deny healing because the person hasn't like learned their lesson or whatnot, and so, in an instance like that, it would be helpful to kind of go to those temples to see what can be done to kind of just help support the client and maybe see if there's like negative entity or something there, something else going on.
Yeah, and I found when I learned QHHT in the beginning, for example, when it came time to discuss the subconscious and what kind of healing we can provide. So I would do a body scan and so forth. And then, we ask for the healing to be from the past life, the future life. But I never really got a good feeling for what was being done by the subconscious and who is the subconscious and how are they doing the healings. And here, when you start working with the angels of white light, it's almost like a direct relationship with them as to the work that you're doing. Now, the interesting part about the work that I do is not only do I work as a therapist where I guide them in hypnosis to work with the angels of white light, once they're comfortable, I usually jump into the scene. And so I start getting the images. So it's kind of like entrainment squared. You're actually in the experience, having that experience. So in my first Temple of Divinity or spiritual regression class, I was able to take like 5 students into one of my students' past life, and we're able to jump from scene to scene to scene. And it's not like we're I'm leading the experience. It's more like my students are standing at different angles of the scene and just expressing what they're able to see. So this could give you more context of how you're working with it. And then I'd be happy to kind of like prepare the script and guide you utilizing the existing QHHT script or whatever, so that you guys can actually connect to the Temple of Healing or the Temple of Divinity and work within those places for healing.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Any
helpful.
other questions? Nancy, you seem like you got a question on.
I was just wondering, like what part of the hypnosis do you use this temple of healing? Oh, like usually I do past life, then I call in the higher self. And I'm a SCHH practitioner with Laura Whitworth
Okay.
with the entity releasement. But I was wondering, when do you call in the white angels?
Okay, so say for example, the Temple of Healing and the Temple of Divinity is in the 6th dimension. That's where it's been shared that these places are located. And it really depends on kind of what you want to accomplish with your client. The Temple of Healing is wonderful because they do have a healing bed in the healing room. And then subsequently, that is when you would call in the angels of white light, to come in and to assist
Okay.
in healing for the client. With the Temple of Divinity, it's a little different because there you meet a guide and they kind of guide you along as to the healing that happens. And it's a place for you to explore. I'm more than happy to provide you kind of more information, like a shorter form of some of the rooms so that you can experience them and guide them. And that would be a kind of a time once you're talking to the subconscious, you can then expand the experience for the client by, say, for example, you do a healing by the subconscious, ask some questions they may have, the subconscious answers, and then you go, okay, like we still have 40 minutes, what else can we do? Let's go to the Temple of Healing or the Temple of Divinity, experience that. And the key for the Temple of Divinity is they want you to its purpose is to heal the client's heart and also help them reconnect with the divine. So that divine connection is really, really key. And while in the Temple of Healing, it's kind of limited because you do have the Akashic records. If you guys are familiar with the Akashic records or exploring the Akashics, that's a place that you can go and visit in the Akashics. The Temple of Divinity has a Hall of Records. They both have the same kind of entrance to the Akashics, and that could be something to explore. And then the Temple of Healing also has the Violet Flame. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with the Violet Flame or worked with Saint Germain. That could be something you could explore with the client as well. Now, with the Laura's program, how does she kind of, because she also works a little bit with entity work, right? I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get the entities off before you even start, that's the first thing you do,
Mm-hmm.
is so you know that they're kind of all pure whenever you go and do the rest of the hypnosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would
So at the beginning.
the earlier that you can do the entity work, the better. And that's why, like, for example, with the Temple of, with the Angels of White Light, you can incorporate that into the healing. When you work with the negative entities, is there a particular place you do that for release or anything like that?
Well, what you do is you like hypnotize the person and you have them go down their body and tell you if there's any pains or if there's anything that's there that shouldn't be there. And then you have the client give it a color.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask if you could speak with the entity.
So,
And a lot of times they're
so
attacked.
So it's not done with kind of a divine presence, it's done with the client's own subconscious identifying it, right?
Yes, right. But I always call in Jesus and the angels before I start.
Okay. Call
Yeah.
call in the angels of white light. They're always there to help and to provide. And you'll realize it's kind of like a higher vibration where it happens. There's more information that is flowing and is able to be kind of expanded upon.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Anything I missed? Something you guys are... I'm not familiar with BQH, so I can't comment on that. What I'd like to stress is that you can do these healings, like with the angels of white light. You can do them via distance, or you can do it in person. You can do it in both situations. I remember for my own experience, like for example, when I was doing the QHHT, I ended up having an entity that luckily the instructor who was dealing with me, the medium, she was able to release this entity. But that in my first session, me getting a QHHT kind of, I ended up with an entity and I'm going, whoa, that was a wake-up call to realize that, this information about not having entities and everything like that, that's a little incorrect, you know. So it's good that Laura's teaching, that, how to do it. There is another book if you guys are interested in terms of like doing an in-depth jump into entity work, and that's called Spirit Releasement Therapy. I don't know if you've ever read William Baldwin's book. I think I might have it somewhere here. And I tend to refer to it all the time. It's kind of like 400 pages on how to release entities. And he goes into a really big, in-depth kind of explanation on entity work. So more than willing.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
I have never really worked directly with hypnotherapy, but in my background, I was taught how to trap them, and I trap into crystals.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use those crystals on a grid pattern for protection around my personal house. So I've got, I would say, somewhere around 5,000 of them trapped. But my first experience with removing entity attachments, I must have had 40 of them, and I didn't realize I did. And once I started trapping them and I'd finally caught all those that were attached, I had this weird vision of shaking my hair like I was a dog that just got out of the shower and shaking. I was free. So I've got no idea when it comes to working with entities that particular way. So I'm really interested to know.
So my philosophy around working with entities is that I like to send them to the light and they just burn up in the light. I don't trap them. I don't keep them anywhere, because my feeling is that you're invoking something that someone is going to come across, a crystal, whatever, and why do they need to, have another experience with that entity? In the Howard Beatty book, he talks to them about giving them a choice of going to the lower realms. And honestly, you know, the way I approach them is totally not giving them a choice, like they are made in with the light of the one infinite creator. And I just say,
Mm.
you have, it's kind of like you're going to go, you're not going to jail, you're not getting $200, there's no pass go, all of this, you go to jail. And that's the same thing, but here you go to the light so that they can, you know, be recreated. Some of the ones that I've seen have been absolutely, you know, you don't even want to see visions like that. Like even today's session, the lady was shocked by when she saw the darkness, and she couldn't believe that. And then subsequently, when we asked if they're willing to go to the light, some of them need to be escorted. They didn't want to go to light, and then they're escorted by either another angel of white light, or we can call in Archangel Michael and his legion of angels, and then they come and they escort them, and they go to the angels to the to um to the light. And basically in the light they
Yeah,
just
I've got a bit of an army of ancients, and I send them with, I've named her Iris, she's our primary protector, and she takes them to a outer world planet which has got a lake, a very deep lake, and they put them in the crystals in the lake,
okay,
and that way they can't
can't
re-escape, and
re-escape.
you're not
And
violating.
for your information, like to really understand them, how do I kind of accept that they are entities? They're located in the fourth dimension. They're kind of in between worlds. And once you start understanding where they're located, it's better to, it's an easier way for you to accept how to work with them. Right. So what I'd like to do is before we do our healing, I mentioned I was going to work with the angels of the Elohim, and I'll explain that. But before I do that, I just wanted to share, if anyone is interested in specifically working with the angels of white light and how to do that in practice, please, here, I'll just post it in the chat again. My, let's see, my email address, please get contact me to do that. It's tmachula66@gmail.com. I was thinking of doing this like a mini course. I could send you the information on this mini course. And I was thinking of a small kind of fee of around $200 just to cover my time in preparing the course and organizing it, and then you guys actually having the practice. And there'll be some homework with you doing it, and me probably providing that one-on-one coaching of the work that you do. But then subsequently, we're going to have kind of two meditations in the course. There's going to be one where you see me work with someone in removing the the entities and going for the healing throughout. And then what I'm going to do is at the end of the course, we're going to actually all together go and communicate and work in a group meditation to the Temple of Divinity. So if you're interested in that, and I'm also planning in the future to do up a spiritual regression course, and this will be a little bit more detailed, and this is actually how to apply a lot of the work with applying spiritual principles to healing, for example, with you know, mental health and weight loss and so forth, to basically kind of your psychotherapeutic or the mental health area, but from a spiritual aspect of it. Okay. Any last questions before I explain about the angels Elohim? No? Okay. Let me explain. Who has heard of the Elohim angels? Anyone? Okay, so these are angels that are located with the creator or close to the creator. They're extremely high vibrational beings. Some people call them soul creators. They're kind of at that time where they made kind of like a soul. I discovered them when I was working with my students when we started traveling up to the different dimensions, and they're located in what's called the 12th dimension. So it's very high vibrational kind of beings. And one day in session, they came in with this request, or they wanted to teach me what's called an activation. And for people who are like a Reiki master, this is what I'm going to share with you is a way for you to receive their healing by me sending their energy specifically to you. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I'd like you guys to do is, Tanis is walking around. Hey, Tanis. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to guide you into this healing. This healing will be roughly around 20 minutes or a little longer. In the healing that's in this activation that we do, I want you to kind of like, you can, if you'd like, you can keep your microphones on just for me to confirm what I'm experiencing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the energies, and then a lot of times I want kind of like a confirmation that you may have received or not have received, and it permits me to understand what's happening much better. So typically, like I have a spiritual YouTube channel called, here, and I'll put it in. It's called Spiritual Wi-Fi. It's on YouTube. If you find my name on YouTube, you'll be able to catch it. And there I have two activations. One is called the Hands of Compassion, and that was done with Jesus, of sending compassion energy. And then I have another one that's free on it. It's called the Mary Magdalene activation. And Mary Magdalene shared how she sends her crystalline energies, and it's absolutely magical. So today, because we're talking with specifically kind of working with the angels of white light, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to, if you're open to receiving this activation and receiving the healing energies of the Elohim. So in order to do this, all I have to do is here, I think I have, I don't know how many people are there. I'm going to just ask you, you can just, for example, the way I do it is I just close my eyes and ask you guys just to focus in, close your eyes. And just to start grounding, I want you to just imagine that you're grounding your feet and ground them like as if they're growing roots like an oak tree, and the roots grow deeper and deeper, longer and longer, until they're connected to the middle of the earth. And then I want you to just imagine that there's kind of like a string from your higher heart, and turn it into a rope. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to combine all your ropes into a lasso and combine it with this whole group that we're here together, and just send it to the light, or send it to the creator, to source. And when you've connected to source, just say, okay.
Okay.
Now, all I do is I kind of remember that frequency of activation from the Elohim, and I'm just going to tune into it. And then I'm going to start sending you the energies from the Elohim. And sometimes they start from the feet and then go up to the head. Sometimes it's head to the feet. And I just want you guys to experience it. And immediately, like, I'm just getting this joyful energy that needs to be shared. So I'll just kind of tune into it. And then once it starts flowing, you guys can
You understand that I am in a meeting, right?
I'm gonna go in and get lunch, so I'll leave you, right?
Yeah, no.
just So I'll just read it.
Why is every siren and dog howling right now? Is anyone else having that?
No, here. Let me just mute you for a second, Melissa, while we're getting this happening, okay? Mhm. And this is just for your information, this is a very light energy. And the feeling I have is kind of like working on from the head, going down. And the energies I'm noticing are kind of moving from the heart to the stomach, just calming the stomach area. Anyone noticing the energies? What are people noticing?
Like a lightness of being.
Like a tingling.
Mm-hmm.
Like a surrounding presence circulating around the body.
And it's not very pushy. They're not pushy at all. They're just kind of like allowing it just allow it to kind of just basically like say maybe your own prayer of gratitude to the angels Elohim and ask them to expand your heart during the session, and let's see what that'll do. I'm getting a message of them working on your legs, of directing you kind of into the right direction. There, some of you, they're expanding your kind of mind. If you notice your mind just kind of like just growing, expanding. We're working on the throat chakra for some of you, and just the third eye, just and then I notice the presence of the Holy Spirit just to expand the energy and exponentially kind of grow their energy. And for someone in the group, they're kind of taking away layers. I don't understand that. Just feel the layers. And if you're feeling kind of like stuck, just allow them, send those layers, the stuck energy just to the light, to them, so that they can just direct it to the light. Feels like they're tearing off a scab. Any other messages coming through? Anyone in the group?
I got, they want to be of assistance and they're just an ask away.
Mhm.
I see almost like crystalline cities, like in another dimension, these crystalline cities or something.
Mhm. So now I'm just gonna kind of disconnect you guys, or to disconnect from the angels from this activation. And in order to do that, I just kind of, just like Reiki, I just fold my kind of hands one over the other and just kind of release the energy. And then we can thank also the angels, the Elohim angels, for coming for this activation and for us, assisting us for our greatest purpose. And you can also thank them and send them a heart or a hug, just to thank them for coming and helping you, and to feel their energies and recognizing their energies. So how was that?
I love it.
I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I could
That's
feel
really
it
nice.
tingling.
Awesome. They're very high vibration beings. So they're not like forceful. They come in just like really light. What did you feel? Did you feel anything, Tanis?
I was actually just gonna say I was yawning and I wrote that on the messages. Is there a reason why I was yawning? I feel like huge energy shifts and I know my voice and my throat, I can feel like there's a bit like it feels like there's something there. It feels a little like I have to drink some water now, but either something shifted or something with my throat. I could feel something. But I was yawning so many times as it was really wild. I don't know. What does the yawning mean? I know energy is shifting, but is there
It could be
explanation?
your throat chakra, because I did feel, for somebody, it was a throat chakra. It wasn't a lot of, I noticed like, it wasn't like a lot of clearing in the head, but it was, for somebody, I felt it was like they were tearing a scab off or something like that. I didn't understand what that was, but it was kind of like tearing something off.
Felt like that might have been for me.
Yeah.
I was feeling that. When you mentioned that, that's the visual that I was getting. But the energy was so high, I just felt like I heard this ringing in my ears. It was like this really, really high pitched ringing, and I felt like I was just gonna fly, fly away. I meant to say something when you said it, but the energy was so high I couldn't like speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing, Natalie. Because it's how do you explain it from my end? It's kind of like I get little images and little examples, and then it's nice to have someone verify it and what you're experiencing it. And it's like I remember the first time I went to the 12th dimension, I was with a student and I found they're in a place, there's a place there called the Cathedral of Eternal Light. So if you have a chance to explore that dimension, go to that place, you can actually receive a healing from them. But we spent, I think, 2 hours in meditation where we could feel like we could feel the spaces between ourselves. That's how we felt the love. It was like everywhere. And it was just so expansive. So you got
What was the name of the room you were mentioning? Something of healing
the
light?
the Cathedral of Eternal Light for the 12th dimension. Is that the one?
Yes, Cathedral of Eternal Life. Thank you.
Yeah, when you come in, it's kind of like a bunch of beds. There's sitting areas, and you can ask them to come in to heal. And it's kind of like they do their magic. Awesome. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then here's a chance for you guys to tell me what you thought and everything. And I'll turn off the recording so at least it doesn't get recorded. But thank you very much for attending. Please reach out to me on Facebook or reach out to me in person. I'm more than happy to share the experiences I have. And my philosophy is we need more people having these skills, expanding these skills, and sending more love, because we can't just have individual lights. You know, we need to shine our light as much as possible, and for more people to experience this and to work with this area as well. So thank you everyone for joining me tonight.